Triple H, the game, continues to stick his big nose where it doesn't belong, but I didn't realise his nose was that big. I didn't know it was 6 foot and that he could dig it so much that he could pull out a dead concept in War Games and continue to ruin the WWE product and turn Survivor Series into War Games. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Wrestling. Here with some more news on Triple H, how he's essentially turning Raw and SmackDown into NXT Black and Gold. Now, I do feel like since Triple H took over, there has been some good moments. There's been some decent changes that he's made in the product, but I also think he's got his big nose. He's been digging up a lot of shit, and he's just been like spreading it all over the place to see what sticks. And for me, what doesn't stick is his model from NXT Black and Gold, his indie wrestling style. And we all know in NXT Black and Gold, something that Triple H was a big fan of was the defunct WCW concept in War Games, where you essentially had 2 teams inside 2 rings, inside a big, massive Hell in a Cell-like cage. Triple H brought it back for NXT Black and Gold, and now he's bringing it to the main roster for Survivor Series, and it is going to replace the traditional Survivor Series matchup. Now, Triple H did comment on this, and he said, I quote, "We'll have a men's War Games match and a women's War Games match. The tradition of the Survivor Series has ebbed and flowed and changed slightly over time. But this will be similar to that. This will not be Raw versus SmackDown. It will be much more storyline driven. I still look at it as a traditional component to Survivor Series in there because it's a large team of people competing. We just upped the ante a little bit with War Games and made it evolve." End quote. So the first thing I take from that is the fact he says it will not just be Raw versus SmackDown. It will be a much more storyline driven match, which to me, that is good news. That I like to see that, because Survivor Series, in my opinion, over the last decade has pretty much been unwatchable. I couldn't tell you that. I think the only decent Survivor Series match I can remember in a very, very long time was probably the match with Dolph Ziggler and The Authority, because there was actually a stipulation. They were fighting for their jobs, and it actually meant something. It wasn't just Raw versus SmackDown, a bunch of people in red shirts versus a bunch of people in blue shirts. That shit doesn't matter, right? That shit is garbage. Who cares about brand supremacy when people constantly jump shows every single week? You've got a Raw guy appearing on SmackDown, you've got a SmackDown guy appearing on Raw, and then in less than a year, they'll be traded to each show, then a year later, they'll trade it back. There is no Team Raw and Team SmackDown, it's Team WWE. I know back in the day, Ruthless Aggression era, you actually legitimately felt like Raw was taking on SmackDown. Everybody was competitive, from the wrestlers to the GMs, to the booking teams, to the announcers, to even the fans. You had fans that preferred watching SmackDown because it was more like, wrestling focused. Then you had fans that preferred Raw because it was like the traditional show. It was more entertainment focused. It was more promo focused. So even there was a shitload of things back in the day that separated Raw from SmackDown, but pretty much nothing separates Raw from SmackDown these days. So the fact that they have Raw and SmackDown competing at Survivor Series just essentially for bragging rights is dumb. They even brought out a pay-per-view named bragging rights just to have this match. So why didn't they just keep that? Bragging rights when it first came out was Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. If they want to have Raw versus SmackDown every year, why not just keep the bragging rights pay-per-view? Why did they get rid of that and then just tarnish and ruin Survivor Series with meaningless matches between people in red shirts, like I said, versus people in blue shirts? It makes zero sense. So from that standpoint, if Triple H is true to his word here, and it's going to be more storyline driven, and it's going to be less just Raw versus SmackDown, then I think that is good. I think that is pretty great. But what I don't like, what I really don't like is he says he's announced there's going to be a men's war game and a women's war game. Why can't we just have one? Why can't we just have one match that actually means something? Why do the women need to have a match just because the men are having a match? Again, it's wrestling now in 2022 where everything has to be like 50-50, and if the men are getting Hell in a Cell matches, the women need Hell in a... If the men are getting a Royal Rumble, the women need Royal Rumble. Oh, women now need to main event wrestle. It's fucking dumb. It's garbage, right? We need to accept that there is a place for women in wrestling, but they're not equal to men. Never have been. Never... I mean, they can try and push them as equals, but they ain't. They just ain't. So I don't see it. Just devalues it, man. Just have the one match that actually means something. Can you imagine? Like Survivor Series, Bad Blood 97, you've got Taker versus Shawn Michaels. They're about to meet in the Hell in a Cell, but earlier in the night you have like Jacqueline versus Sable in a Hell in a Cell match. Like, how much would that just take away from the actual main Hell in a Cell match? It's just dumb to me. So I don't know why they need to have a women's one. I would just do away with that. I would just have the one men's match. And yeah, Survivor Series, I just don't get why they're doing away with the traditional 5-on-5 or even 4-on-4 elimination match style. I think a lot of people enjoy Survivor Series. I think a lot of people argue even Survivor Series is their favourite pay-per-view of the year just because of that match concept. And now Triple H has pretty much done away with it. And anytime I've seen the War Games implement it in WCW or NXT, that matter, I've never actually felt it was that good. I felt like it was just too clustered, too many people in the ring at the same time. For me, I've never watched a War Games match and thought, that was really good, that I really enjoyed it, that was great. Whereas, back in the day, most Survivor Series matches were great. Because it's one person in the ring at the same time. You have eliminations, it can come down to 1-on-1, it can be 5-on-1, it can be 2-on-4. You're going to get all the cool, numbers and concepts, and you can tell there's storytelling as well. I always feel with War Games, it's just a bunch of people in the ring at the same time, hitting big moves, hitting spots. Then you'll get someone that'll just take a bump and then they'll lie down in the corner for 5 minutes. To me, I just do not like the War Games concept. I think it's dumb. But it reminds me of Lethal Lockdown in TNA. I never felt like the Lethal Lockdown match was that good. It was always the same thing, The first team will come out with the advantage. They'll dominate for 2 minutes. Then the second team will come out. They'll dominate for 2 minutes. Then it just keeps switching and switching till the end. I mean, to me, I'm not a big fan of that, and I'm not a big fan of this. So if Triple H really wanted War Games, I'm not against it. I mean, if Triple H wants War Games, he can have War Games. But why does he need to have War Games in place of Survivor Series? Why can't he introduce War Games onto a different pay-per-view? Or give it his own pay-per-view altogether? I would have no problem with that. But I think replacing Survivor Series it's just too much. I mean, he's saying it's a similar match. That would be like replacing the Royal Rumble with a Battle Royal and claiming it's the same fucking thing. That's essentially what Triple H is doing here. He's claiming that a War Games match is the same as a 5-on-5 elimination match, and it's just not. It's not, and it would be like replacing the Royal Rumble with a Battle Royal. You could argue, well, there's loads of people, there's like 20, 30 people, they're getting chucked over the top rope, but it's not the same thing, and we know it's not the same thing, so let's not lie to us here, Triple H. Come on. Get your big nose to fuck. You know that this is a different match altogether. We know that you've got a hard-on for War Games. We know you like War Games. But you can have War Games, but why does it need to be at the expense of the Survivor Series main event and Survivor Series format? I don't understand it, guys, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. At the moment, I'm going to assume it will be the Bloodline, since they've got 5 members now. Reigns, the Usos, Sikoa, and Sami Zayn. I'll probably be like the Bloodline versus Team SmackDown or something. Who knows at this stage? I don't even know who they'll be going against. I think it is in November, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see in November. It is after Crown Jewel, so should be after Roman Reigns is taking care of Logan Paul. We'll see, but I'm going to assume the men's one will be the Bloodline. And at the moment, the women's one, it could really be anybody at this stage. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, that's it, guys. Let us know your thoughts down below. Are you all for War Games? Do you like the sound of War Games? Or are you disappointed that the Survivor Series elimination style matchup is no more? Let us know in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. But until then, peace.